Hi, my name is Jason Troyer. I am a former professor, but now I'm self-employed. And one thing that some people find interesting or unusual is that when I tell people that I make about 20% of my full-time income from booklets, not from books, but from booklets. And so often they have some questions. So I thought I'd put together some of the most common questions and topics that people ask and go from there. When I talk about booklets, in my experience at least, I have experience with printed booklets. I don't have any experience with e-booklets. I suspect there's probably some ways to profitably do that. It's just not my area of expertise. Currently, most of my booklets are 8 pages. They started off being 36 pages. What I realized is that most people, the end user, typically doesn't want them to be very long. They want something that's very focused and to the point, and that increases readability and those sorts of things. But your printed booklet might get up into the 48, 60 pages or something like that. Something that could be easily printed by an online printer, a local printer. You wouldn't have to go to a book publisher, so to speak. Something you could print pretty easily on your own. One really important thing about this is the business model. The business model is not likely what you think it is. It is not writing a booklet and then hoping to sell it to lots of people. Instead, it's the opposite. Find a business partner, a business or an organization who wants your expertise on a certain topic in a booklet that they can sell or more likely give away, and then find that partner and then write the booklet that matches your experience but also fits their needs and provides value to them overall. Businesses love using booklets in certain situations if it can help their clients, their customers, provide them with more information that's useful, sets the business up as an expert, educates them about certain things, and they have the benefit of having the content written by an expert in this topic, so to speak. So my expertise is in grief and loss, and so most of my booklets focus on that topic, and mine are purchased by funeral homes, cemeteries, hospices, churches, other organizations that want to give them away after people have suffered a loss in most situations. But I don't sell any booklets individually. I only sell booklets in bulk to organizations that then they give them away to individuals that they want. One great thing about booklets in terms of the money side of things is that they are very profitable, especially compared to books. Now, this will really depend on the size of your booklet and what kind of profit margins you're able to achieve and set up and those sorts of things. But generally speaking, at least in my world, the profit margin from about 2.5 booklets is the equivalent of the profit margin of one full-length book. Now, like I said before, I don't sell my booklets individually. I only sell them in minimum packs of 25. And so if you do that math, if I sell one pack of 25, it's the equivalent profit of selling 10 books right away. But the big difference is that my clients typically order at least 100 booklets, if not 1,000 or more. And so it's a completely different in terms of profit margin. So the example there on the screen is from, obviously there are exceptions to the rule and textbooks are different, but a typical nonfiction book written by a professor, a research-based book that's not a textbook, if it's going for $25, the author's getting somewhere in the range of $1.50 per copy, per sold copy. Compare that to a $1 booklet that your clients might purchase dozens or hundreds of. You're might get as much as 45 cents. That might be on the high side, but it's not outlandish at all. And so the profit margins are much, much more impressive. I'm sure there are folks out there who maybe even some of you watching this who see the booklet seems like it's kind of cheap. It's certainly not as prestigious as a full-length book. I get it. But if you're there to share information and also make a profit off of your knowledge, then this is what I have found is that this is a much more effective way to do it. I mentioned this in another video. I have a research book. It's called Counseling Widowers. It was published by Routledge. Really proud of it. I'm glad I wrote it. But I have over 10 years, I've made less than $1,000 in profit from that book. I have had single orders of booklets that make more profit than that in one shot. And so if you're looking to get paid for your knowledge, booklets can be a great way to do that. A couple of the great things about the benefits, I've mentioned a few of these already. So quick to write compared to a book. A book you're looking at a 1 or 2 year project, and then you hope to sell it to enough people to make it worthwhile. Like I just said in my example, I'm proud of the book that I wrote. I'm happy that I did it, but in terms of profitability, I probably, the math would be somewhere around $1 or $2 per hour of effort that I put into it, which just isn't all that reasonable. For booklets, you're looking at writing 1,000 to 4,000 words. Of course, you might write a longer booklet, I guess, but a longer booklet isn't necessarily better. In fact, it might eat into your profit margins, and it may not be focused enough for the reader. Most readers are not like professors or academics. They don't want to read a lot. They want to read exactly what they need to solve the problem or get the information that they want. And so the tighter you can focus your booklets, it can actually be better. So it's a low time investment. It's a low cost investment. It is a great way to take your expertise and get it out into the world and hopefully get paid for it. Your clients that the businesses and organizations that, if you're following my business model, that you're selling to, they love the fact that they're partnering with someone typically with a PhD or some advanced degree who's an expert in this topic. And so it builds their credibility. And if you find the right niche, they're happy to pay for the booklets and based on what they can accomplish for that business and kind of, ride the coattails of your credibility in that situation. One thing I want to emphasize, you do not have to be the #1 expert in the world to write a booklet. In my experience, most of the #1 experts out there are probably not focused on writing booklets. They're probably focused on doing research or writing academic works. But booklets typically are written for a lay audience, the average person who wants information to solve a very specific problem. So you just have to have enough information to be able to write those 1,000 or 4,000 words and be able to answer their questions and help them solve that problem, whatever that might be. Like I mentioned, my booklets, I started off writing, because I didn't think I could write them any shorter, I started off writing them, they were 36 pages. I thought there's no way that I could get them any shorter than that. My current booklets are now 8 pages. I have 17 different booklets that fall into the grief and loss space. Like I mentioned before, I don't sell them individually. I only sell them in packs of 25. Primarily, my clients are, because my topic is grief and loss, my clients are funeral homes, cemeteries, hospices, and faith communities who then give away the booklets to people who typically suffered a recent loss in those situations. I do have some pet-related booklets. I also sell some booklets to pet cremation businesses as well. A little bit of advice if you're looking at trying to write booklets to maybe share your knowledge and also make a little bit of profit. Focus in on solving a problem. Booklets are not great for just kind of talking a little bit about various things or just kind of a light book, so to speak. Focus in on a specific niche. It's almost too difficult to get too niche-y, so to speak, or to get too specific. It's almost impossible to do that. Now, if you're following my business model, you're going to have a reader and a client. So the client in this situation is whoever is paying for the booklet. So for me, that would be, for example, a funeral home or a cemetery. And then you would also have in my case, the bereaved person is the reader. So I've got to serve both of those audiences, and you've got to pick topics that you're comfortable with what you're doing. There's certain things that, in some cases, there's certain things that clients, the people who are writing the checks, would want you to say or want you not to say. Now you've got to determine if within that topic you're okay, talking about those things. Sometimes it's not a huge problem. It's never been a huge problem in my world. My clients just want me to write good, modern grief information with helpful advice. But there can be certain situations. Every field, every profession has a certain slant on certain issues, those sorts of things. Now, one thing in my situation, if I were to write a booklet about, for example, funeral rituals, my clients wouldn't want to see in the booklet funerals are a big waste of money. They obviously probably wouldn't buy that booklet to give out because that's part of their business model, so to speak. So you've got to think about both the reader and what will be helpful to the end reader, but also if there are any requirements from the clients before they would be willing to purchase the booklets, and decide what you're okay with, and draw all those lines, those sorts of things. Like I mentioned before, find the client first before you write the booklet, because it will shape the problems that they're trying to solve for the readers, for their customers. Um, and So find that client first, and find that need, and then invest your time and energy. Although it would be a relatively short process to write a booklet in a weekend if you focus on it. One thing definitely to do is, if you're not great at it, go ahead and get help with a professional graphic designer. Booklets need to be well designed. Part of it is kind of showing maybe good pictures, good design, readability, good layout. Space is very limited, so layout is important, those sorts of things. Don't try to pack too much into onto each page, those sorts of things. A great way to generate even more profit is to consider a series. If your booklet is getting too long, try to break it down into at least 2 or 3 different topics. And when you find a client, they might want to, and you write 5 booklets, they might want to buy all 5 from you, so to speak, if they're all relevant. So think about a series of booklets that you could write, and maybe even kind of map that out before you write your first booklet. Don't try to stuff too much stuff in. As an academic, you're going to know a lot about this topic. Try to think about, if you're sitting on an airline seat and you've got 2 minutes to share some advice with a person sitting next to you about something that you're an expert in, what would you tell them? What advice would you give? What would help them in just 2 minutes? Those sorts of things. That's the kind of thinking you need to be doing, instead of going back and doing there's no room for a lit review in a booklet. There's like a 1-sentence lit review or something like that, maybe a 1-paragraph lit review. The focus is on how can you give information that is helpful in a short period of a very short space, so to speak. I just came up with some examples of, other than my example with the grief and loss, but if you were maybe a gerontologist, maybe how do folks talk with aging parents about long-term care, and maybe assisted living places would want to purchase that book. More on the health side of things, if a child is suffering really debilitating migraines, what would parents want to know? And so maybe a migraine clinic would want that information. For a college, college admissions office or a financial aid office might want a booklet about supporting a first-generation college student, probably some even more specific topics within there. More on the natural sciences or ecology side of things, maybe a local nursery or plant store would want something about native plants in your state, in your area, in your province. And maybe a history professor would want something about, might write something about helping write your family's history, so to speak. So I am working on a book called Side Businesses for Professors. This sort of content is the type of stuff that will be in it. If you'd like to be notified when the book comes out, or if you'd want to be a beta reader, if you go to sidebusinessesforprofessors.com, you can sign up for an email list. I rarely send out emails. It's certainly not a monthly, or certainly not a weekly, or hardly even a monthly sort of thing, but it would give you some more information about different ways that you can use your expertise outside of academia to get paid for it. Hope this was helpful.